Jundland wastes are not to be travelled lightly. The Sand People are easily startled, but they'll soon be back, and in greater numbers.
Welcome to Season 2 of Esoterica, the podcast.
Yes!
Where we discuss the obscure, offbeat, and unusual. And I'm Chris Schultz.
And I'm Aaron Christian. And this is exciting. And I probably just blew your eardrums out because that spiked so high.
But if there's a reason to spike, being excited about our second season.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And since this is our second season, we discussed during our brief hiatus that we wanted to change things up a bit. Because our tagline is that we discuss the obscure, offbeat, and unusual. And that does include things other than albums.
Yes. And so that means that if you caught on at all, you were checking out our social media or our website, that you saw on Monday, we just released a vlog for the first time.
Yes. Not only our first vlog, but a teaser to today's episode where we discuss our propensity for using multi-million-dollar satellites to locate Tupperware containers in the woods.
When you put it like that.
Also known as geocaching.
Geocaching.
So,
we probably should start just talking about what the hell this thing is.
you know, it's funny, too, because I wouldn't consider geocaching to necessarily be esoteric, but more often than not, when I've said to people, you know, oh, I like geocaching, or I found a cache here, they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, not as widely known as you would think.
No, it's not. And I think there's been a few caches I've looked for that are like in a parking lot of places, and people looking at me like, did you lose something? What are you looking for? I'm like, didn't quite lose something, but something's waiting to be found.
I remember ages ago, there was an episode of, I think it was Law and Order. It might have been one of those, their SUV or whatever, you know.
SVU? Special Victims Unit?
Yeah, I did that intentionally. It may have been
Like
one
PDF
of those.
and PFD.
But somebody found a geocache in Central Park, and there was like a body part in it, and somebody was killing somebody and hiding their pieces in geocaches.
That's awful, but kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Like that somebody would go through that much effort.
Right. Doesn't really happen. So what is geocaching? Geocaching is an outdoor recreational activity in which participants use a global positioning system, receiver, or mobile device to hide and seek containers known as caches at specific locations marked by coordinates all over the world.
So I'm a little upset because I went to Canada, and usually on the geocaching app, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure, and if you saw in the video, you get little like badges for going to different states or doing different things.
Yep.
So I went to Canada. I could have gotten a Canadian one, and I didn't do it.
You didn't do a cache, or
I didn't do a cache.
Oh,
There was like 5. We were in Halifax, Nova Scotia. There was like 5 right on the coast of the harbor there. I didn't do any of them.
when we went to Disney, we had a layover, I think, in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was really wishing there was one at the airport because I can't think of another reason why I'd be in Georgia.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to get a state one there, but
Yeah, I've only got the 3 state ones: Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine.
I think I have those. I have Vermont, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey.
Never been to Vermont.
Vermont's nice.
I've heard. So anyway, you know.
Anyway, geocaching. So basically, as I said, the definition, you're using a GPS, a handheld GPS device, in order to find caches, which are hid at specific locations marked by coordinates. So the question is, how do you know all of this? Well, first thing you do is that there's a website, geocaching.com, which is the official worldwide game of geocaching. Mm-hmm. You can create a free account. They also have premium, which we can discuss a little later, but you can create a free account. Really, the only thing that you need to purchase for this is either a independent handheld GPS device, which I strongly recommend. I think is the best way to do it.
But is also optional if you use the phone. But I like the handheld better. I'm just too cheap.
Yeah, and there is an app on your phone, and I think, is that a free app?
Yep, the app is free. The account, if the premium is not, but you can get the free account, and everything costs you nothing.
And that's all you need to play. You don't need to hide a cache. You can do that if you're a registered member.
Mm-hmm. We've both done it.
We've done it. I have 5 that I maintain. or you could just play the game and go out. So what you do is once you've created an account, you put in a location either by zip code or address, and it will show you a map. How many caches are in a 10-mile radius? Now, for a sport that not a lot of people have heard about, you would be amazed at how many geocaches are out there.
I love how many of them are hiding in plain sight. Plain sight. You have ones that are like in telephone poles or on phone booths and stuff like that. You'd be surprised. You could have driven by like 4 or 5 of them every single day, and
you'd never know. One of the nice things about geocaching. So I'll make a side note just because we're trying to make ourselves sound a little better this year with our quality. So Aaron's been putting a lot of effort in post-production, and I'm already aggravating him with...
You've aggravated me. You've aggravated me at least 5 times during this whole thing, but I love you for it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Maybe I should be forced to listen to our episodes more.
You should be forced to look at the waveform and think about how you're going to have to do this later. So some people, I don't know if some people have heard of letterboxing before. And honestly, I Wikipedia'd it because I have no idea what it is. I've just seen that it's a related thing. Do you know more than I do about this, other than that it exists?
Not really. I mean, I'm familiar with it. There's a lot more involved in letterboxing. I'm more familiar with waymarking.
Yeah. Well, because these are things that are predecessors to what geocaching is, essentially. So, as far as you think of, we'll talk about multi-caches, right? And as far as letterboxing goes, you have to do some orienteering, like the GPS, some problem solving, puzzle solving, which is basically kind of what you have to do with a multi-cache, some multi-caches.
I'm researching geocaching as we're talking. Apparently there's also geodashing and stratocaching, which is other things. Yeah. But we're talking about geocaching here.
So let's kind of go from the ground up. Let's say you're a new geocacher and you are cacher. What do you call it? Geo dude? I don't know. Let's say you're new to this.
Yeah, cacher. That's I think that's what I
think
call
so
myself.
too. So let's say you're new to this. You just download the app on your phone, or you get a GPS, whatever. You're brand new. Where's a good place to start?
So I know when I started, I just started with my address to see what was directly around me. So there's quite a few. So at this point I have found 222 caches, and probably 200 of those are within a 10-mile radius of my home.
Yeah.
There's a park up the street from us that I think has like 6 or 7.
I've only found 2 there, maybe 3, including yours.
So there's a couple ways to do it. You see what's out there. If you have kids and you want to go make a day of it, it's good to find a spot like a state park that has a bunch of caches in it. So it gives you, you're driving out there, you might as well have more than one to find, because sometimes it's a great thing about geocaching. Sometimes it's a matter of pulling over your car, hopping out, finding it, and you're done in 5 minutes. Other times it's a day-long adventure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like me and you're a wuss about bushwhacking, you'll find as many what we call park and grabs as you can and just go down a road and get those.
We recently, and if you watch our vlog episode, I don't think we have a park and grab in that one.
Not an easy park and grab. I mean, we have ones that if we parked a little bit closer, like if we drove up to the top of the tower in P-Town.
Oh yeah,
that could have been a park and grab. It was a hard find, but it could have been.
The Dune one that is the bulk of that episode, that took us a couple hours. Right?
It took us 3 hours. 3 hours. Yeah. The video doesn't do it justice as how long it took. It took us 3 hours. It was strenuous. I think it was almost 2 miles round trip.
Yeah.
There and back. I was sweaty, wearing a black T-shirt. Almost died. We didn't have water. It was so much fun.
But that's the sport. And one of the things that's great about the sport of geocaching is for the people that place a cache, a lot of times what they're trying to do is bring people to a spot that they like. It might be a little off the beaten path. There are parks around here that I didn't know existed that I have now been to because of geocaches, or historic sites. So that's kind of cool. You can experience things you might not otherwise have experienced, which is what we're all about here at Esoterica.
Right. So, finding little park and grabs or picking a place and just looking at a bunch of them, that's a good place to always start. You might run into things called multi-caches. And Chris, you want to explain what those are?
Yeah, I was going to
You're a little more eloquent with your words.
So they start with a traditional cache, which is the most common type, and that just consists of a container and a logbook. So you go to the website, there's a description of the cache, there's usually a little bit of information about it, and the most important thing is they give you the coordinates, the longitude and latitude. You go there and you find a small container, usually a Tupperware container or an ammo box. They'll have a
Bison tube.
or a bison tube.
Yep.
Those have in them a physical log, which is either a notebook or a piece of paper that you write down your geocaching handle or name and the date. That way there's physical proof that you actually found the cache. And then you also log it on the website. So a traditional cache, you get the coordinates, you go there, you find it. GPS are usually accurate to within about 20 feet. Some, the handhelds like mine, usually within 10 to 5 feet, it's accurate, but anywhere after 20 feet, you're somewhere in the vicinity. So you use at that point what's called your geosense. You got to do a little bit of hunting around to actually find the cache, and that's what makes it fun, because if the GPS took you right to it, there's really no skill involved.
There's no fun in that.
So that's the traditional cache. Then, as Aaron mentioned, there's a multi-cache, and these are one or more stages. So what you get is you get the coordinates that will take you to the first cache, and you open that up, and there's either a clue that leads you to the next stage, or there's a set of coordinates, and you follow that. I've done ones that are up to 6 stages, so each time you find a container, there's a different set of coordinates, takes you to a new location till you finally come to the...
Well, and if you like the problem-solving aspect of it, but you don't want to do, 6 stages of a cache, there's also mystery caches you could do.
Mm-hmm.
There are those that you have to go to like a stone, like we did in Squantum, Quincy. There was a stone there. We had to get like the letters off of it and make new coordinates out of that. There's virtual caches too. I went to the top of Mount Washington, and there's one there where people bring a rock dedicated to 9/11, and they leave it at a specific spot, and you need to take a picture of yourself with those rocks and stuff. So there's a lot of opportunities to try different ways of caching in this sport, which I think is what draws me to it, is that it's whatever experience I want to make it, instead of just the one set of rules. There's just, your guidelines to follow. But, if you want to do one that's based on the history of an area or colors or whatever, make a little course about it or whatever you want to do, you have the reign to do that.
The majority of the ones that I've placed are mystery or puzzle caches.
That's why I couldn't see them until I got premium.
Yeah, and what those do, as Aaron was explaining, so you get coordinates to a specific location, and there's usually a plaque or a sign, and then the final coordinates to the cache are missing digits, which you have to glean off of that or doing math problems. There's one in Rockland that I still haven't found that some math teacher did, and you have to do all sorts of equations to find the missing coordinates.
Of course.
That's a multi that I've only found part of.
I have never done a multi.
Multis are fun unless, and this is why utilizing the website is very important, and why I say to people, please log your finds on the website. You can look and see the history of the cache. So let's say, like myself, I've found every cache within a 10-mile radius. So if I want to go geocaching, it's a trip for me. So if I drive 15 miles somewhere and go find a cache and it's missing or it's been destroyed or it's gone, that's kind of a bummer. You put some time in to go out there. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. There's nothing worse than dragging your kids to the woods and then not finding anything. So you read the logs. If there's been a problem, if the cache is missing, if it's overgrown, if there's a vicious dog that's taken out residence next to it, people will log that so you can see before you go to make sure that everything's copacetic before you head out to find your cache.
There's one cache up in New Hampshire, and I hope the cache owner is listening, because this guy irks me a little bit. It is usually, it gives you a rating, how bad's the terrain, how bad's the difficulty. I think the Dune cache was a totally underrated terrain because that was strenuous.
Yeah, it was.
But this one in New Hampshire, it's in this covered bridge, and the difficulty is 4 out of 5, which is fine. But I could not find this thing. And the hint is like, it's on the stream side of the bridge. That doesn't help me.
It's a bridge.
It's a bridge. It's on one side or the other. No crap. So I'm looking at this thing, and he says you need to mark it as what's called a DNF, did not find, on the app before he gives you a better hint. And I'm like, dude, no.
That's not cool.
Help me out a little bit ahead of time.
So a couple other types of caches out there. There's a challenge cache, which I don't think I've done this before. An example is you find a number of caches that meet a category or complete a number of cache finds within a certain period of time or on a calendar day. There's also night caches, which are really cool if you can find them. It's a multi-stage, and they're intended to be found at night. You can find them during the day, but people will place reflectors on paths in the woods so that your flashlight lights them up. So that's really kind of a cool thing to do.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Geocaches you have to receive permission from the landowner to place them. So if you're looking to hide a geocache, that's something to take into consideration. But if you're out hunting, you also want to keep that in mind. You stay off private property. I believe federal parks, national parks, you're not allowed to place caches. State parks, they're usually allowed. Local parks, you should always get permission. In fact, geocaching, the moderators on the website will not publish your cache unless you either furnish proof or let them know that you've actually gotten permission to place your cache there.
Yeah, I think when I hid mine, I had to give them the name and phone number of the person that I got permission from.
Interesting. Like an example of that, one of the caches that I place is right next to my house. And I finally had to go and write something in the description because people kept commenting that, oh, the neighbor was out, so we didn't try to find the cache. And I'm like, I hid it there so that I could see people finding my cache, but apparently I scare them off. So I mentioned in the description that cache owner lives
You are a
next door.
scary looking guy, so I can totally understand why people would be upset.
It's true. And one of the things that you want to avoid when you're geocaching, because some of them are in public spaces, is what's referred to in geocaching as a muggle. A muggle...
If you're familiar with Harry Potter, you get where we're going with this.
Yeah. Harry Potter, non-magical person. Real life, non-geocacher. So it's somebody who doesn't know what it is. If you can imagine, and I think this happens with younger people a lot, you find a container sitting there and it's got a bunch of little toys in it.
Yeah.
You probably throw them in your pocket or wreck it or throw it out or something. That's called getting muggled. So you have an opportunity, sometimes like somebody oversees you digging around for bugs. You can explain what geocaching is, and I've actually gotten people into the sport that way. But generally, like if you're pretty sure you know where the cache is and there's people around, and you wait until they go and then try to find it. So that's geocaching in a nutshell.
I think that anything further about the sport, you should definitely check out our vlog from Monday, because we did go into depth. We gave a lot of visual examples, and this is really just nice to kind of have the conversation and talk about what we enjoy with the sport, like what makes it exciting, what makes it fun, and just like a nice light way to start off season 1 and just get everyone excited. Season 2, I should say, get everyone excited for the awesome things we have coming up.
And kind of what we want to do, and I think part of our intention with this podcast is, one, we like to share things that we're into that are a little off the beaten track that people might not necessarily know about.
Yeah.
But in certain occasions, there's stuff that we're interested in learning about, and we want to take you along with us on that journey. Geocaching happens to be something that we already do. A little bit of history on geocaching.
Mm-hmm.
So it was started in May of 2000. The first cache was placed in Beaver Creek, Oregon. And the reason 2000 is when the whole sport was started is the United States government removed selective availability from the global positioning system. So selective availability, apparently, I had never heard of this before, but apparently when the global positioning system was designed, in order to keep enemies from locating United States military assets, intentional errors were put into the GPS system that would throw it off by like 100 meters or so. So the FAA had been requesting that the military remove that because it would make their jobs a lot easier in tracking airplanes. And in 2000, President Clinton, was he still president in 2000?
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was. Introduced a bill to get it done. It got done. They removed it, and then accurate GPS was available to civilians as well, and the sport was born from that. So it's been around for about 20 years.
Well, I will say this. If you're new to geocaching, or even if you're not, and you're going to go out and do a cache anytime soon, I want to encourage anyone, take a picture, not of the cache itself, but like where you are, your view or something. Tag Esoterica the podcast, and we want to see new places that everyone's visiting, get ideas for new caches, stuff like that. Hashtag Esoterica the podcast or at Esoterica_podcast on Instagram, whatever you want to do. We'd love to see it. It's really cool. We want you guys to get involved with what we're doing and stuff like that. And Chris is giving me this like smile nod thing, but I want to see it, so we're gonna do it.
I was actually debating setting up an account for Esoterica so that when we go out, we can log those for the show as well as us.
Maybe we'll have to make an Esoterica the geocache.
That would be a good idea.
It would
And
be.
I noticed as I'm looking through the site here that there's also something called GeoArt, which is geocache's place to form a picture. And, of course, I'm thinking that I might need to do that now.
The only time I've seen that is in the shape of a pentagram in Freetown State Forest.
Interesting.
Yes.
So the other thing I think that we should probably mention, if we're introducing people to geocaching in general, is there are different types and shapes of caches, and that's something you want to take into consideration when you're going out.
Yeah, we touched upon this briefly earlier about Tupperware containers and bison tubes, but
Yep.
there's like official classifications for them.
So there's a nano, which is or micro, which are very, very small. That's what a bison tube is. If you're unfamiliar with a bison tube, it's a very small, like cylindrical container.
Yeah, maybe an inch tall at most.
If you see that, and this is especially important if you're doing this as a family activity, if it's a micro, there is nothing in that cache except the log. So you need to bring a pen, and there's not going to be any swag in there to trade, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, when you're more traditional or your standard size geocache, which can be anything from small to medium, is usually a Tupperware container, a pop and lock.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a used ammunition box. You can actually purchase containers from geocaching directly. And those usually will have a log in it. Sometimes they'll have a pen or a pencil. And there will be small items for trade, such as like plastic army guys, tumbled stones, plastic rings, little doodads like that. And the idea is you want to get kids out there.
I mean, you've found ones with Comcast remotes in them.
I did, yeah. This was actually a large one. It was like probably like a 30-gallon barrel, and
Yeah.
it was full of Comcast remotes, which is a little odd, but hey. The important thing to know is especially if you're bringing your kids out, bring small, cheap toys with you, because you always, if you take something, you want to leave something. There's nothing more disappointing than finding a decent size cache and there's nothing in it. So items for trade makes it a little more fun. There's also trackables, which are usually little small toys or something. I've seen a lot of rubber ducks.
Yeah, if you watch in our vlog episode, we found a trackable in Chris's cache in Ames Knoll. So I took that and brought it up to New Hampshire just about less than a week ago. And it actually didn't fit in the cache I went to go put it in. It was a hide-a-key underneath a payphone, which is the one I think we talked about at Intervale. It didn't fit. So I kind of made it fit. And so I dropped it in there. But what's cool with I didn't know this. They all have a goal. I didn't know that. And those are, this one wanted to go to Alaska. So I figured New Hampshire's a little bit closer to Alaska. And also you can like dip them into other ones, just like put it in the cache and bring it back out. And they've quote unquote visited the cache, which might be stupid, might be cool, whatever you think.
It's kind of fun. I have, you can also buy directly from geocaching. They have medallions that you can put on a walking stick. And then your walking stick sort of becomes a travel bug. So anytime, I don't use my walking stick that much anymore, but when I would log it as having visited all the caches that I go to. One of the reasons to become a premium member as opposed to a free member is when somebody places a cache and it first becomes active, being the first to find is a bragging right. People get excited about being the first person to find and log that cache. And a lot of times a cache owner will purchase a challenge coin to put in the cache. It's a first to find coin. So if you're the first to find it, you get to keep that. Travel bugs you don't keep, you move them on to somewhere else. But like challenge coins or something like that, then that's for people to keep. So those are kind of cool incentives to get out there and see what's happening.
I just checked on the trackable I dropped off, and it hasn't moved.
So 9 years ago, June of 2011, I released a travel bug called a Kalis bug, and its goal was to travel the world sharing the scout spirit, and hopefully end up at Gilwell Park in Epping Forest, England. So my bug traveled 3,622 miles and was last recording as being discovered in 2017. Jaden's cat. Oh, okay, so it made it to Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan.
So they have a log, on whatchamacallit, geocaching.com. So you can keep track of all this stuff. Like I'm going through the history of people that marked my travel blog, and I can see it made it to British Columbia. It was in Washington State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. So that's a sad story of my travel bug. But that's the fun of the sport. Mm-hmm. You get to occasionally meet other geocachers out there, but there's a lot of interaction on the website, reading the log, seeing pictures, going to exciting places. I know there are quite a few town parks around here that I didn't know existed and never would have visited if I wasn't geocaching.
A lot of people feel that way about the place I placed my cache. They're like, oh, I didn't even know this pond existed. There's a pond there. Fun fact.
One of the other important things about the culture of geocaching is practicing what we also refer into scouting as leave no trace. In geocaching, they call it cache in, cache out. So you want to make sure that you keep everything the way you found it, stay on the trail. There is some bushwhacking involved. Usually the final cache is hidden a little bit off the trail, but you wait until you get as close as you can before you start trampling through the underbrush.
Yeah. What is it, 16 feet usually is the error?
Yeah, that's about, yeah.
Yeah.
Anywhere from 20 to 15, 16-ish. It's a fun sport. Okay, before we go any further, I want to take a minute to talk about the awesome folks at Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way. In fact, it's the way that we make a podcast. Let me explain.
It's free.
There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
And you can make money from your podcast. Best part, no minimum listenership.
Ooh. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
It's so cool. We found the service. We started using it. We're making podcasts.
Yeah, making podcasts, making money, having a good time.
So listen, you want to get you out there. You want to be heard. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thank you.
So check out our video.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed this, I hope you'll enjoy the rest of season 2 that we have coming up. You can join us next week where we review Chris.
The band 16 Horsepower and their album Sackcloth and Ashes. So that'll be our episode next week.
And to keep in mind, we still have t-shirts. Like, those didn't go away. So
yes.
We're going to mention this the next 4 weeks for sure. But buy a t-shirt, esotericathepodcast.com. You can also check out all of season 1, which we spent a lot of time and money on. So please do. Our Famous Folks series, which just wrapped up, no, not even close. It's still got 3 more episodes left. And then other things that are a Patreon account. It's always good to check out. So I guess what I'm saying is go to esotericathepodcast.com, check out all of our stuff. We would love to have you.
See what's out there. And always, if you have suggestions for things you think we should be checking out or talking about, let us know. We're always happy to hear.
Absolutely. Well, until next week.
Stay esoteric. Jutland wastes are not to be traveled lightly, my friend. The Sand People will be back and in greater numbers.